Okay, the latest patient on the table is a Victrola VIII. That's VV-VIII. This one is serial number 174407. That's 1923. All of the 8 series were oak. You could get different kinds of stain on them. This one, I'm going to assume this was golden oak at one time. It's faded with age, it's darkened with age, that's typical, but it could be one of the fumed oaks. You never really know. I was a very, very popular seller for Victor from 1911 to 1924. You've seen me do a couple of other ones in different videos. Because it was a popular seller, you do tend to run into them quite often, but not as much as the 9s. This did not outsell the Victor Victrola the 9th. Yeah, it has a 2-spring motor, just like the Victor Victrola the 6 does. The actual springs themselves are slightly smaller than what you'll find in the 9, so it's not quite as powerful. 10-inch turntable. This particular one, and what did I do with it? It's somewhere here. There it is. Came with a Victrola number 2. Now, that could have been straight from the dealer when it was new, or it could have been upgraded at a later time, because most of these came with exhibitions. Not sure if by 1923 they were using the Victor Victrola number 2, but you never know. As you can see, this one is rough. Well, not that rough. I mean, everything's there. The thumb wheel turns. But definitely has some issues with the diaphragm. You can see that. The gasket. Let's get a close-up of that. Look at all those cracks. Yeah, it's petrified. It's stone. And same for the isolator gasket. That turned to stone probably during the Eisenhower administration. Long time ago. But other than that, it's not damaged. It's in good shape. That'll clean up. And that can be rebuilt. Not an issue. That's typical. This machine, where did I don't remember exactly. Oh, look at this. It's actually still turning. I didn't even wind it up. Just released the brake when I loosened the motor board. Although I'm sure I did wind this up and test the motor when I first got it. That was a few years back now. This came out of Pennsylvania. I don't remember if it was a flea market, side of the road thing, or if it was an actual. It's kind of like one of those combinations where there's a few little stores and it's sort of a flea market on the side. And I was there early in the morning. I spotted this. And what really attracted me to this was one little detail right here. JJ, I don't know how to pronounce that. Kai's, something like that. Music dealer, 104 East Center Street, Mahanoy City, Pennsylvania. Now, I went to the website of the Mahanoy City Historical Society, and they have the Chamber of Commerce listings for 1926. And he is listed with, where is he? Give me a second here. My eyesight is not that great. I just saw it. He's listed as a piano dealer. His name with 2 S's. Oops. No, we don't want that. We'll find it. I just saw this on here. If you see it, shout right out. Oh well. There we are. They spelled his name with 2 S's. Probably a mistake by the paper, because I imagine he would have done the correct spelling on his own tag. So in 26, he was known as a piano dealer, but I guess music dealer kind of covers everything. So most of these machines tend to be anonymous. You know, you get them, you really don't know, unless you buy them from the family that's had it since new. You really don't know where it's been, the life it's led. You know, it could have spent all of its time in a closet. You don't know. But when you get one with a little tag like that, it gives you an idea of where it was. And like I said, I did find it in Pennsylvania, so it didn't really go far. And I can tell that somebody was keeping it up. The veneer was loosened here a bit, and I could see they glued it. You can see that's probably was Elmer's glue, which is good, because hide glue is, I believe, what they used on these originally. Seems to be anyway. That's why veneer tends to loosen if there's any dampness. And let's face it, Pennsylvania summers are damp just like New York summers are. Humidity, that's common. You know, I see a little repair. Where is it? I'll find it. There we go, right on the door. See how they spliced in a piece of oak veneer right there? Did a neat little job on it too. I mean, it's very close. Really nice. They did a good job. Little repair down here and up here. So somebody was taking care of this. And for whatever the reason, it ended up for sale at a flea market where I grabbed it. Needs to have the little rubber feet replaced in the bottom. See how it's touching the tabletop? You don't want that. You only do that when you have one of those aftermarket slide-in tables that they made for these. You have to take the feet off to put them in those. They slide in and lock in with molding. But if you're using it on a tabletop, you do want the rubber feet. In fact, there they are. There's the replacement feet. That's how they come. That's what they look like, same as the originals. I do that to all of them because you'll scratch the heck out of a tabletop if you put that on there without the feet. I mean, it's raw wood. It's not finished under there. It's going to scrape back and forth on stuff when you're cranking it or whatever, and you're going to have problems. So always replace the feet if they're missing. You can get them easily from any of the parts dealers. Let me give you a little peek at the motor here. First, I move that out of the way. These do not have a pivoting hinge, so not always easy. Let me put the camera down for a moment. Well, I'll lift this up with both hands so we don't have a disaster here. That would not be good. You see, because it's a 1923, it has the single spring barrel with two smaller springs in it. Everything else is pretty much conventional that you'd find on a Victrola VI. You know, it has the looking glass, the small glass speed control there, which so did the 9s. The 9s had a little bit bigger, I think. Forget. Let's put that back down. And it has the knob is still there. Sometimes these fall off. They get loose and they're missing. You can always tell the 8s right away because they have this L configuration of the I got to get a new spent needle tin. Didn't realize that was missing, but I do have spares. So, but there, the spent needle tin would be here, and these are your 2 needle cups there. And of course, like I said before, the 8 only came in oak, no other way. And the stay is not broken. I just have it set up that way so I could lift it up and show you that little tag on there. Very rarely do I find those. Very rarely, which is unfortunate. You can see it's very nice veneer still on there. No big peel spots you sometimes find. The corners look good. It was a nice looking machine. I can't tell for sure if this has been refinished in the past. It's very possible because it's not as dirty as I would expect, but a test of an inconspicuous area when I first got it turned up shellac, not polyethylene or whatever. It is shellac, so I'm not too concerned. A little bit of a repair there, I think. But overall, it looks pretty good. Haven't tried to spin a record up on it, not with that reproducer. I'll have to rebuild that first. And I'm going to go through the motor because I don't know what, if anything, was done to it. It does look clean. I suspect it has been cleaned. But I don't know if they went so far as to remove the springs and properly clean those. Now, I see this a lot where someone has taken a motor apart, cleaned all the gears real nice, everything's spotless, but they didn't want to tackle the springs. So they're still filthy in there and it's thumping and bumping and you're like, what is going on here? And that's what happens. And, you know, we got to fix stuff like that. That needs to be tightened up a little bit. That's no big deal. That's normal. If it's missing a couple of ball bearings in there, I have those too. They're easy enough to get. Nice grain on there too. Now the thing with these being in 1923, this is from the famous time in Victor history, 1923 and 24 into 25, when they ended up with a massive overproduction of certain models, the 9, the 8, the 6, the 4, and other ones, floor models too. Because while tastes in machines amongst the public were changing, people wanted electric amplification, they were interested in electric motors, upgrades like that, and they wanted different styles because essentially the style of this machine is pretty much, on the outside, pretty much unchanged since 1911. They made them 11 to 24. And by the last 2 years of production, they were actually making more machines than they could sell. Dealers had machines stacked to the roof. They ended up having to sell a lot of them in South America, Central and South America, to bleed off production. They had a half-price sale, to get rid of a lot of stuff. Now, obviously, this one went to a music shop, so this was not one of the ones that went to South America, and it was not one of the ones that probably sat around in a warehouse for years waiting to be sold. This went to a music shop and ended up in somebody's living room and was used. And of course, a few years after that, the Victor company was merged with RCA, and that was that. At the Camden plant, the production was winding down and then ceased entirely by 1932, although technically the 265, which was the last machine made in Camden, was a parts machine made from outside vendors' parts that was shipped in and simply assembled in the old plant, and then they shut the doors forever. But in 1923, they were still going full steam, and this is one of their most popular machines they were churning out. And it's a very good quality machine, like all the Victor machines. Doesn't matter if it was the small tabletop Victrola IV or the biggest of the 16s, with the gold plating and all that stuff. They were all very high quality machines. They were the highest quality machines made at that time, with HMV being equivalent over in the UK. Now, I did put the HMV Model 103 briefly next to this while I was changing them around to bring this down. And the 103 is actually only about a little short of half an inch shorter, case-wise, than this machine. So that they are really kind of size-wise, they are equivalent. Although this is a heavier machine because it does have a full floating horn in there. They got the big horn in 1913, just like the Victor Victrola the 9th. And the isolated horn, I should say. And it does float in there anyway, but the isolated horn. Big cast iron horn. So it is heavier than the 103 is, HMV's 103. And a bit fancier, the wood is a bit fancier, the screw configuration, that stuff. Because the 103 was made in a later time period, obviously. And this is 1923, so. But there's a look at it. I'm going to go through the whole thing, and when I'm done, we're going to play it. I still have the number 4 reproducer down here, so I'm definitely going to play this with the number 4, see how it sounds. Just to see how it goes. Because it takes a while for me to rebuild the Victrola number 2s. Not that it's hard to rebuild them, but in 1923, when the Victor company put this together, just like HMV, they used a one-piece natural rubber gasket in there. Slipped it over the diaphragm, popped it right in there. The replacement gaskets available today are a two-piece, like a spongy rubber type deal. And while they do work, they seal it up, the right width, all of that. But because they are like a sponge rubber type, they're not rubber, I don't think they are rubber, they're some kind of sponge, they will tend to settle in and find their own level in there. So if you assemble it right away, you clamp the body together with the new gaskets in there, and you assemble your needle arm on there, and you make sure the needle arm is straight, and all of that. You come back 3 days later, the needle arm is canted a little bit. How did that happen? It happened because as air is forced out of that sponge, it slowly settles, and the diaphragm will move in or out to wherever it wants to be. That could take 3 or 4 days before it's finally. So you have to set these aside. I do for a week. I clamp the diaphragm in there with the gaskets, set it aside for a week, walk away, come back, and then I assemble the needle bar on there. Because then I know the air's been forced out and the diaphragm is at the level where it's going to stay. That's what we have to work with. We really don't have, anything else at the moment. There is nobody that I'm aware of on this side of the pond reproducing a one-piece rubber gasket. Unfortunate, because we could really use it if anybody out there is interested in starting that business. I mean, you can get the isolator gasket, no problem. That's reproduced. And, of course, different shades of color for the diaphragm gasket in there, but no one-piece gaskets, unfortunately. And none of them seem to be natural rubber either. They're all that sponge material, which, like I said, it does work, but it takes a little work to use them. You have to be aware of that. And that's not something that the instructions, if you get instructions that come with them, will tell you. This is not a problem that you run into with the exhibition, because that uses a rubber tubing. And once you clamp that in there, it's really not going anywhere. It's clamped tight and it's going to stay there. But not these. And not the number 4s either. Same problem. Different color gasket, but it's the same type of material, and you do have to preload them, set them aside, and let them sit for a bit. So this won't be ready this week. But I probably do have one in storage. I'll just take one out and use that one. But there you go. The Victrola VIII, another one, 1923. You know, 174407. I think production number, serial number stopped in the 230s somewhere in 1924. But there you go. The latest as they come along. And I see I'm going to have to replace the little felts there too. They're missing. The bumpers. That's just so you don't make a big clattering noise every time you drop the lid. Okay.